The Hall of Ancestors was silent the way tombs are silent. Cold light, cold stone, rows of towering portraits, each one a Threnn ruler who had ruled with an iron jaw and eyes like Judgment Day. Mara Voss stood in front of the newest one, heart hammering, grinning like this was the bravest thing she'd ever done. "Do it," someone whispered behind her. "He never even comes to this wing." So she did. She struck the king's pose, chin high, eyes narrowed into a scowl so exaggerated it looked cartoonish, and let out a loud, ringing laugh. "Someone tell His Majesty a smile won't kill him." The laugh hit the stone walls and came back wrong, hollow, because no one was laughing with her anymore. She turned, and the room had emptied. Every human who dared her was gone, vanished like smoke, like they'd never been there at all. She was not alone. "My name," a voice said, low and unhurried, close enough to stir the hair at her neck, "is not something to laugh at. Though I'll admit, your aim was accurate." Her stomach dropped through the floor. She turned slowly, and there he was, Kael Threnn, Alpha King of the Threnn Dominion, 3 feet away, arms folded, watching her with eyes that missed nothing. He hadn't come through the door she'd been watching. He'd come from somewhere else. Somewhere closer. Rumor said he'd once had a man's tongue removed for a lesser insult than this. Mara didn't move, didn't breathe. Somewhere beneath the terror, absurdly, she noticed his eyes weren't cold at all. They were amused, sharp, alive in a way the portrait had never captured. This was it. This was how it ended, not with a war, not with glory, just her and a king and a joke that had gone catastrophically, wonderfully wrong. He took one slow step closer. Mara didn't sleep. She lay awake replaying his voice. "Tell me what else you really think of me," until the words lost meaning and became just sound, just warmth, circling in her chest like something dangerous. By morning, the whole station already knew. She could feel it in the sideways glances, the sudden silences when she walked past. The human who mocked the Alpha King. Her supervisor cornered her before her shift, jaw tight. "One more mistake," he said, "and you're on the next transport home. In disgrace." She didn't answer. She was already walking toward the throne chamber. The guards at the doors looked at her like she was something unfortunate that had wandered in from outside. Inside, Kael sat waiting, still as the portraits behind him, but his eyes found her the second she crossed the threshold, and something in them wasn't cold at all. "Well," he said, "you had an answer for me yesterday. I'm still waiting to hear it properly." She could lie, flatter him, walk out with her career intact. Instead, she lifted her chin. "The portrait makes you look like you hate everyone in this room. If that's really who you are, this peace treaty was doomed before it started. So you might as well hear the truth from someone brave enough to say it, since apparently no one else here is." For a moment, nothing. A guard's hand drifted toward his blade. Then Kael laughed, a real laugh, low and startled out of him, like it had been locked away for years and had forgotten how to escape. "Every voice in this palace tells me what I want to hear," he said, stepping down from the throne, closer than protocol allowed. "You are the first who has ever spoken to me like an equal instead of a subject." His gaze lingered, unreadable and much too warm. "I find I don't want that voice to leave." He turned to the stunned court. "From this day, Mara Voss serves as my personal liaison. She stays close." Somewhere behind him, an advisor's face went white with fury, and Mara realized she'd just made an enemy far more dangerous than any portrait. "Tell me," he said quietly, "what else you really think of me." Here's part 3, same tone carried forward. Days folded into each other. Mara found herself in Kael's chambers more often than the throne room now, going over trade documents that somehow always led to longer conversations. He asked about human customs like a man starving for something ordinary. She asked about the weight of a crown he never asked for. Neither of them mentioned how close they sat, or how long the silences lasted before either wanted to break them. "You laugh like it costs you nothing," he told her once, watching her instead of the star charts between them. I'd forgotten laughter could be free. She felt that land somewhere she hadn't guarded. But not everyone watched them with warmth. Threx, The pack lord, who'd expected the king's trust for himself, watched with something colder. He began small, a mistranslated line here, an altered document there, each one designed to make Mara look careless in front of the court that already doubted her. Kael noticed, anyway. He always noticed her now. "These errors aren't yours," he said one evening, low enough that only she could hear. "I know your work. I know you." His eyes held hers a beat too long. "I know you better than I meant to." Mara's breath caught, and for one dangerous, honest moment, neither of them looked away. She told him, quietly, why she'd taken the dare that started all this, that she'd come here running from every place she'd never been enough. He told her he had never let anyone close enough to disappoint him, because trust had only ever been a blade turned back on him. "Until you," he said. "You're the first thing in this palace I haven't had to guard myself against. It should have been the start of something soft. Instead, it was the moment Threnn struck." He stood before the full council the next morning with forged evidence in hand. Proof, he claimed, that Mara Voss had been selling Dominion secrets to human command all along. Before Kael could reach her, before she could even speak her own name in defense, the guards were already at her door. The cell was cold, but nothing compared to the cold certainty in Mara's chest that trust, once again, hadn't been enough to save her. Her supervisor visited only to warn her. Command wouldn't intervene. Any move to protect her would look like proof of guilt. She was, in every way that mattered, alone. Except Kael didn't see it that way. He tore into the council chamber before the session had even formally opened, something no Alpha King had done in 100 years of Dominion law. "Explain," he said, voice low and lethal, "why she was taken without my order." Threnn smiled and laid out his forged evidence like a man certain of his victory. Documents, dates, a case built to bury her. Mara was given the right to answer. She took it. Calmly, precisely, she walked the council through every flaw in the forgery. Inconsistencies in phrasing no real translator would make, patterns only someone imitating her work, badly, could have created. "Whoever wrote this," she said, meeting Threx's eyes without flinching, "doesn't actually understand the language they were trying to fake." The silence that followed was worse than any accusation. Then Threx's own second-in-command broke, unable to carry the weight of the lie any longer, and confessed everything, the altered documents, the whispered rumors, all of it Threx's doing. Cornered and exposed, Threx didn't wait for judgment. He lunged for Mara with a snarl of pure desperation. Kael moved faster than thought, faster than fear, placing his own body between them without a moment's hesitation. The blade meant for Mara caught him instead. Guards swarmed to drag Threx away as the chamber erupted into chaos. Shouting, panic, the scrape of steel, but Mara heard none of it. She saw only Kael, the most powerful being on the station, sinking slowly to one knee. And while everyone else hesitated, frozen by rank and fear, she was already running to him. She didn't remember crossing the room. Only that one moment she was standing frozen, and the next her hands were pressed to the wound at his side, his blood warm against her fingers, her voice breaking as she begged him to stay awake. The healers came. They told her, more than once, that this wasn't her place.
She didn't move anyway.
Not for hours. Not until his eyes opened again and found her first, before anything else in the room. "You stayed," he said, voice rough. "Where else would I be?" Something shifted in his face, disbelief, and beneath it, something softer than a king was supposed to allow himself. "No one has ever chosen to stay," he murmured. "Not once. Not without a reason to. Maybe I didn't need one." Threx was stripped of title and exiled before the week was out, and the council, humbled, watching the king who'd bled for a human translator, spoke her name now with something close to respect. Weeks later, Kael led her, still healing, into a private gallery she'd never seen. A new portrait hung there, unlike any of the stern, silent ones in the Hall of Ancestors. This one caught him mid-laugh, eyes bright, caught in the exact instant she'd first made him forget he was a king at all. "You said the old one lied," he said quietly. "I wanted one that finally told the truth." She stepped closer, close enough that the space between them barely existed anymore. And what truth is that? He didn't answer with words. He answered by closing that last distance himself, gently, like something he'd wanted to do since the moment she turned around in that cold, silent hall and found him standing behind her. Outside, word spread across the station, human and Threnn alike, of the woman who laughed at a king's portrait and, without ever meaning to, became the one thing he'd never let himself want. Closing line, she came to Kaelor Station believing she had to prove she belonged somewhere. She left having found someone who made her believe she never had to prove anything at all.